What's happening, guys? This is RRPG here, and I'm here to present another 2 cents video on the 2 cents block to you all. I know that 2 cents videos on rumors aren't usually my cup of tea to work on by any consistent means, but if they pertain to a game or game series I really enjoy, then there is no way that I'll back down from delivering my thoughts on what is quote-unquote leaked from an inside source. With that said and done, let's talk about Devil May Cry. Devil May Cry is one of my favorite franchises of all time, and I personally have a big attachment to the series since the original game's inception back in 2001. Devil May Cry 2 was a massive disappointment, as the stylish nature of what made the first game so great wasn't even there. Devil May Cry 3 was a breath of fresh air because it went back to the aesthetics of the first game and streamlined the experience for a more fast-paced and frenetic-as-hell type of experience. And Devil May Cry 4 continued that streak, while seeming like an unfinished product that played more with going from point A to point B with one character, and all the way back from point B to point A as another. DMC Devil May Cry was actually not that bad of a game, despite people disliking that particular universe, its character portrayals, and how it acts more realistic than tongue-in-cheek as the original games are. I personally like DMC Devil May Cry because of the gameplay, but everything else I wasn't a really big fan of. Ever since Devil May Cry 4 and DMC Devil May Cry came out, so many fans of the original canon are wondering what is next for the famed Demon Hunter. Since it has been nearly 10 years since Devil May Cry 4 was released, and its special edition re-release was just only a couple years back, the wait for Dante's 5th outing in the Devil May Cry franchise may be just right around the corner. Upon a news post that my friend and co-host of the Game Riffers, 16-Bit Jeff, posted on our Facebook chat, I had a chance to look at the link, and I have a lot to talk about with what I believe from these potential spoilers. Now, just as a reminder, if you don't want to hear any of these spoilers, then by all means, please leave this video right now, as I don't want you to feel bummed out from hearing any of this. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Now, I know that I did not talk about this during the year of 2017 when it was mentioned by Capcom, but it was stated by the Devil May Cry series' current head, Hideaki Itsuno, that he is working on a secret project for the company, as it was going to be something completely different outside of Dragon's Dogma and the re-releases that came about. This alone made many fans of Devil May Cry speculate that the original canon's 5th installment is to finally get underway, and it looks like that is to be the case from this supposed leak. Let's go ahead and take a look at the bolded points in this leak, shall we? Hideaki Itsuno's secret project for Capcom is the sequel to the original Devil May Cry series, the 5th installment. Internally, it appears to be called Devil May Cry 5, instead of using the standard numeric system of the previous games. So think like Metal Gear Solid 1 through 4 to Metal Gear Solid 5, where the first 4 games had 1 through 4, the standard numbers, while MGS5 has the Roman numeral 5 in it. Now, before I go any further, I just want to clarify the minor annoyance of why video game sequels or any sequels to anything that have used the standard numeric system in their titles are now just switching over to Roman numerals unexpectedly. I know it isn't a big deal, but I just like it when there is consistency in the titles of the games in a franchise. That'd be like if the supposed 16th installment to the Final Fantasy franchise had a standard numeric symbol of 16 instead of being consistent with Roman numerals. You could probably argue that games like Final Fantasy X-2 and Final Fantasy XIII-2 has a standard numeric symbol at the end of their titles, but the thing is that they still have the title of the game where it has the Roman numeral in its title for consistency before having a standard number in it. I just find that the immediate switch from a standard numeric system to a Roman numeric system toward video game sequels to be weird as all. Anyway, let's continue. Here are the bulleted points about the game's potential release date and its production. The game is slated to release sometime in the fiscal calendar year of 2019. That means sometime between April 2018 and March 2019. Original plan was to release it in November 2018, but the date might have been pushed back to early 2019. Originally, DMC5 was intended to be announced at PSX, which is PlayStation Experience by the way, but after receiving feedback on their E3 press conference, Sony decided to scale back on PSX and instead scale up E3 2018. DMC5 was an unfortunate casualty of this choice, and thus it's unlikely that DMC5 gets officially revealed in 2017. There will be a demo for the game sometime before release. Game has been in development for 2 years as of right now. When it will release, it will have been in development for 3 years at least. That is actually the highest time a Devil May Cry game has been in full production for. Pre-production started as early as 2015, right around the time when Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition finished releasing. There have been no development hiccups, and as stated, the development has in fact been progressing smoothly. There is some form of PlayStation exclusivity involved. Sony is paying for some of the funding for the game, but the extent of it is not known. Could be completely PlayStation 4 exclusive, console exclusive, or timed exclusive. If the game is announced publicly, then it will be at a Sony event, which is why many people thought it was going to be at PSX. Trailer has been ready for a while now. The initial trailer is 1 minute 50 seconds long. They may add new cuts to trailer to make an extended version since some time has passed from when it was made. It is mostly focused on story, characters, and cutscenes. A city-like setting is shown in the trailer, not that different from Fortuna City in Devil May Cry 4. The overall game is supposed to be quote-unquote ambitious for a DMC title with a broader appeal. And finally, longest cutscene runtime of any Devil May Cry game yet. Based on these notes of its potential release, it is unfortunate that we probably won't hear anything about this at PlayStation Experience if these specific rumors turn out to be true. It would have been nice, but my guess is that Capcom didn't want to overblow in the number of games that they showed off for this year, seeing as how their current focus is on Monster Hunter World, which is slated to release near the end of January 2018. At least the console versions of that game anyway. When it comes to the production, the point where it says that the development team has been progressing smoothly with no hiccups is very reassuring. However, I do have a couple of major concerns from this list. First of all, the supposed fact that the game is supposed to be quote-unquote ambitious has me a little worried. If they are going to treat this as a full-on AAA game, then I can't help but feel that certain sectors such as microtransactions, downloadable content, and a season pass are going to be involved in some way. Granted, if DLC and a season pass are there, then I probably would buy them because I support the Devil May Cry franchise for sticking true to its core, but I will do no such thing if microtransactions are implemented in any way, because that shit needs to stay on smartphones and not in full-scale games like what was done recently with Middle-earth Shadows of War, and Star Wars Battlefront 2 before the latter was completely thrown aside after a massive backlash from gamers. Now, the biggest thing that really has me pissed off is if Sony has paid for the game to be an exclusive to their platform only, and not having a PC, Xbox One, or even a Nintendo Switch release. I don't understand how Sony has not learned their lesson after the debauchery and craptastic mess that Capcom unleashed with Street Fighter V. I guess we can say that Andrew House's successor, John Kodera, is thinking only about greed instead of the satisfaction of the consumers because of him wanting to implement more microtransactions into Sony's own games. If that is truly the case, then I'm not going to buy the game on that notion either. In fact, I don't think anyone would if this turns out to be true, because it would be an utter slap in the face to Devil May Cry fans and PlayStation fans altogether. Like I said, microtransactions should not exist, unless if it's for a small-scale game that is on a smartphone, because that makes sense. For a retail game, that shit needs to stay away. All in all, the latter of my two complaints really has me worried about Devil May Cry 5 if it becoming a full-on exclusive to PlayStation 4 turns out to be true. If it's a console exclusive, or at least a timed exclusive, then I can let that slide, but I guess we'll have to wait and see what the verdict is when that game is finally unveiled. Alright, now let us continue to the second section, which is for the development team. Itsuno's team that worked on previous DMC games and Dragon's Dogma is working on Devil May Cry 5. Yuji Shimomura is returning as the cutscene director for DMC 5. He worked on Devil May Cry 3, Devil May Cry 4, and Bayonetta cutscenes. Ruben Langdon is reprising his role as Dante, Johnny Young Bosch is reprising his role as Nero, Dan Southworth is reprising his role as Virgil, no word on the actresses who played Trish and Lady if they will be returning, and Anya Fiori is helping with the soundtrack, where she did the song for Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition's launch trailer. Based on this part of the leak alone, and if it turns out to be true, then I'm very content with this information, as that means the original canon of Devil May Cry looks to be in good hands with the same team of developers and the voice actors for the characters we come to know and appreciate. I'm actually very surprised that Tetsuya Shibata and Kento Hasegawa from Devil May Cry 3 and Devil May Cry 4 are not mentioned for the soundtrack, as just Anya Fiori is the only one mentioned. Granted, I suppose they need someone to work on the main song for this game, but hopefully that 80s and 90s metal vibe in the music is still there, because that makes Devil May Cry for what it is in the soundtrack. I just hope that dubstep is not used as a basis for the game's music as it was for DMC Devil May Cry, because that shit was cringeworthy. Alright, now let's press on with the characters and story, as I have a lot to say on this. Devil May Cry 5 picks up the story after Devil May Cry 4. More than one playable character in the game, Dante is for sure playable and Nero is possibly playable as well. Up to 3 playable characters have been suggested for now. This is the most serious Dante has been, a quote-unquote new side of Dante. Of course not counting Devil May Cry 2. Dante still plays with his enemies and has his usual over-the-top flair, but this game is going to be more personal for him. A third character is expected to be playable as well, said to be very powerful, may or may not be brand new to the series. No word on whether Virgil is playable or not. He will be returning, although specifics on how he is returning from his death in Devil May Cry 1 are unknown. Trish has a prominent role to play in Devil May Cry 5, but no word on whether she is playable or not. There will be a sequence where Nero and Virgil have a confrontation, confirming their relationship. Nero is in fact Virgil's son, as stated in the DMC 3142 art book. Characters switch during key story points in the game. The quote-unquote Prince of Darkness is featured as the main antagonist of the story. Prince of Darkness title normally refers to Mundus, so it might indicate his return, but that title may have been transferred to another character. And finally, Devil May Cry 5 might be the end of the Sons of Sparda storyline. If this takes place between Devil May Cry 4 and Devil May Cry 2, then looks like all notions of there being a fixture after Devil May Cry 2's unanswered ending is still going to be a mystery. Plus, it still hasn't been clarified whether or not Capcom plans on retconning Devil May Cry 2 from the overall canon, seeing as how people were not in favor of where the story went and how Dante was portrayed away from his trademark demeanor and personality. With there possibly being more than one playable character in the game, and with character switching going to happen during key story points in the game, it looks like Hideaki Itsuno and his team are retreading grounds from Devil May Cry 4, where Nero was playable for 60% of the game, while Dante was playable for only 40% of the game. I just hope it's not another one of those things where one character goes from point A to point B, while the other goes from point B to point A, as I found that linearity as a cheap ploy to avoid inputting more originality and creativity to the overall game. It also surprises me how Virgil is going to be in the game's story, but Capcom being unsure as to whether or not he will be the third playable character. If Virgil is going to be in the plot for Devil May Cry 5, I can't wait to hear how he comes back from the dead after Dante slew him in the first game when he became Mundus' puppet after the secret ending in Devil May Cry 3. Pieces of his armor and his sword, Yamato, were used by the Order of the Sword for their own deeds when it came to Devil May Cry 4, so it makes it the more interesting to see how Virgil comes back. Will he come back as an amnesiac, a more powerful half-demon, or possibly as Mundus' puppet once more, if the main antagonist from the first game is making his inevitable return, which I will get to that part very shortly. However, what really intrigues me about Dante is that they are going to portray the character with a more serious side, while still having his trademark demeanor and personality that we all like about the character. But if the events of Devil May Cry 5 are going to be more personal for him, then that is probably where his brother Virgil and Mundus' possible return, including Trish's involvement, where this new side of Dante is going to come into play. About the scene where Nero and Virgil are going to meet, with their relationship of Virgil being Nero's father, doesn't really surprise me. When I first played Devil May Cry 4, when Nero obtained the Yamato from Agnes, as well as Virgil's Devil Trigger being behind Nero when the young hothead is in his own Devil Trigger form, I figured that there would be a connection between the two characters, as I theorized that Nero was Virgil's reincarnation after being brainwashed as Mundus' puppet. After I played Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition, and with Virgil's own story mode coming into play, the notion of him being Nero's father started to become more apparent, which began to underwhelm me. However, it is good that we'll finally get some character development between the two, since story is going to be a major focus for this game. Lastly, with Devil May Cry 5 possibly being the end of the Sons of Sparda storyline, I think it is a good thing that there is closure on that part, because I'm ready for there to be something new to have more of a strong focus outside of the Sons of Sparda mythos that we have known for so long. I'm ready for Dante to go into new territory that will deal with a new theme, instead of going through another story that deals with his lineage at the forefront of the plot. It's the same how I feel that after Kingdom Hearts 3 is going to be the last of the storyline that deals with Xehanort, the newest games will go in a new direction with Sora still returning as possibly still the lead character. I just hope for both franchises, they don't try to overcomplicate things when they take their respective narratives into a brand new direction after the final games and those storylines come to fruition. Last but not least, let us talk about the gameplay and systems. Hard lock-on is standard. Console is targeted for 60 frames per second like the previous Devil May Cry games. Level design is more open than previous DMC games, but not going into Souls or open world territory of level design. Movement outside of combat has been streamlined to match the open nature of the game. The structure is more open to make the experience more quote-unquote smooth. Immersion is important to the team with this game. Level design and exploration is more similar to Bayonetta, with action set pieces thrown in there without the quick-time events. Quick-time events in general do not exist in Devil May Cry 5 thus far. There is no stamina bar. This is not a Musou game, but there will be encounters where you are facing more enemies than you are used to in a Devil May Cry game. There is some online integration, but definitely no multiplayer PvP. Dodge system is reworked, and dodging in general is supposed to be a lot smoother than before. Also, get ready to hear the word quote-unquote smooth a lot in relation to Devil May Cry 5. Camera pulls back during big fights. The devs are really proud of the new, more dynamic camera system. Animations are being improved to be less stiff. Big emphasis on cloth physics. Maybe Dante's sword might not clip through his jacket now. Battles are beautifully animated and smooth. Mission and ranking systems similar to previous Devil May Cry games and Bayonetta. There will definitely be mission/chapter selects. Bosses being ramped up dramatically in Devil May Cry 5. One of the boss fights moves between multiple areas of the game. Style system is in for Dante, and enemies will react a bit differently to each style. Style system has been streamlined to be smoother to use for the players, and it is speculated that the style system might be tuned and reworked to make it easier to get into than in Devil May Cry 4. Certain styles will have advantages on certain enemies similar to DMC Devil May Cry and Devil May Cry 3, and you can use a single style on any enemy just fine. More environment interactivity than any previous Devil May Cry game. This is supposed to complement the combat system, not detract from it. There is some form of dynamic environment destruction/transformation in play, but not on the scale of DMC Devil May Cry thus far. While this is not an open world game, some inspirations have been taken from Dragon's Dogma. From a gameplay standpoint, I can definitely see much of what is said for Devil May Cry 5 to be a step in the right direction, as many of these newer experiments does look to shake up the formula from some way or another. I'm also very glad that Capcom is not trying to take a Dark Souls or a Dynasty Warriors approach with this game, as I can see it being more akin to that of a Ninja Gaiden reboot type of experience. I just hope that the enemies in the game are filled with trial and error, not just a bunch of mindless and cheap cucks that will give anyone a hard time, because that is what makes me still loathe Yaiba Ninja Gaiden Z with a fiery passion. What I find to be the most unique in the gameplay is that the style system for Dante will make enemies react different to whichever style that Dante is playing in. For those of you who don't know, those playstyles are Gunslinger, Swordmaster, Trickster, and Royal Guard, as those gameplay styles are very self-explanatory. I hope there's more than just those like what they did with Devil May Cry 3, because just having those 4 in Devil May Cry 4 was a turn-off point for me when it came to Dante's gameplay. The fast switching between combat styles was very practical and intuitive to pull off some sick combos, but only being limited to those 4 when there are 5, 6, or 7 of those things in Devil May Cry 3 was a major letdown. I also like the fact how the environments in the levels will affect the entirety of the gameplay as opposed to just linear occurrences like what was seen in DMC Devil May Cry, because they didn't really have any relevance to the overall combat. One thing I am really hoping for is that Dante's weaponry after defeating bosses is more fun to utilize, because I really didn't enjoy the weapons you gained from bosses in Devil May Cry 4, since they came off more underwhelming than being superior. If Devil May Cry 5 is not going for an open world game but taking inspirations from Dragon's Dogma, then I hope there's also some influence from Monster Hunter when it comes to the different sections of the different locations you visit, as well as those pillars and layers being traversable in some way, because I can see that being a major benefit for one to locate secrets. For everything else, it has me optimistic if Hideaki Itsuno and his team are going for this approach. I just hope that the game fits a good play period of at least 12 hours at length for the whole campaign, and not be incredibly short if Capcom is trying to be more ambitious with this game to bolster more appeal outside of its audience, because doing that will most likely hurt this game's chances for success. Overall, my main stance towards this leak, if it turns out to be true, is a pretty positive one. I have given shit towards Capcom because of so many decisions they made in the past and their most recent shortcomings with Street Fighter V and Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, but if Devil May Cry 5 ends up being a step in the right direction and does not undergo the things that I fear could happen, then it may leave me looking at Capcom with a second look and see that they may actually still have some good left. However, I'm not going to hold my breath until what all they have to say about this game, because like any rumor or leak, they should be taken with a grain of salt, as this is no exception. Since it seems that we won't be getting an announcement trailer for this game at PlayStation Experience for this year, then I hope that what they show for next year will blow me away, because I really do not want this to be another fuck-up from Capcom due to how much damage they have already done. Unfortunately, my fears may come to haunt me because of anything they'll do to try and be desperate with getting their money back, like how they are doing things with Street Fighter V and Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite at this time. I just hope that this game isn't a PlayStation 4 exclusive, because that is not going to be a good sign if it is, and I'll be even more pissed off at Sony if this turns out to be true, if they haven't learned from their own arrogance from a year or two ago with Street Fighter V. I am truly ready for more Devil May Cry in the original canon, and I hope to God that you do not fuck this up, Capcom. I seriously mean it, as you would do a stronger disservice to the franchise and Dante if you go this route. You would only commit yourself to a game over instead of jackpot if this is to happen. Seriously, don't screw this up. Alright guys, that's all with my 2 cents, as I want to hear your own about this topic. Do you think there may be truth to this leak, or do you think it is just a rumor and there could be something else being worked on for Devil May Cry 5? Make sure to rate this video as well as leaving your feedback down in the comments. Also, be sure to hit that subscribe button underneath this video, as more support from you guys will mean that more content is coming from me in the future that you won't even find anywhere else. Until next time, this is RRPG signing off by saying Godspeed and game on, gamers. Have a good one. Hey there gamers, it's your friendly neighborhood RRPG here, and I have a special announcement just for you. Myself and my friends 16-Bit Jeff and Fighter Cows of the Game Riffers are hosting our own live stream where we give our reactions to the 2017 The Game Awards by the Dorito Pope himself, Jeff Keighley. If you follow us on the Game Riffers and probably wonder if doing this live stream is exactly what we did during the press conferences at E3 every year, then you would be right. However, this event in particular is where we get serious with our antics and riffs, since the Game Awards usually has an identity crisis that gets so many people pissed off. We also are not sure if we'll cover PlayStation Experience, but RRPG will cover it on his YouTube channel if we don't agree to do one for the Game Riffers. If you would like to know where to find us and when you can join in on our festivities, then fear no further as we got you covered. The 2017 The Game Awards by Jeff Keighley will happen on December 7th, 2017 at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. But the Game Riffers will go live at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, just 30 minutes before the show kicks off. We will be going live at that time on our Twitch page, and you can find us at twitch.tv/TheGameRiffers. That's where we always do our live streams on an event such as this, and you can guarantee that more shenanigans, live stream button noises from me, and massive hilarity and seriousness will be all over the place. Oh, and if you are familiar with our content and follow us during these times when we live stream, then you'll want to stick around, as we have a big announcement that will give insight on the future of the Game Riffers going forward. We are very excited about this announcement, and you should be too. Either way, here's an outline of the event happening in December, and be sure to join us as we'll chat with you all, answer your questions about an event such as this, or other things in relation to gaming, or to just come on over and say hi. Be sure to join us for this time, as the Game Riffers are going to have another jam-packed extravaganza. Until then, we'll see you on December 7th when we go live during the time of the Game Awards that is hosted by Jeff Keighley. This is RRPG signing off by saying Godspeed and game on, gamers. Peace out!